Hey there, everybody. Welcome back. We're in the end of chapter 2 at johnblakely.com/textbook. You can see the full address there. And we just got done doing linear inequalities. Now we're going to do absolute value equations and inequalities. So absolute value, we'll start off with absolute value equations. And we'll make a second video for inequalities. So, absolute value of x is the distance that x is from 0. Let's say absolute value of x equaled 3. Then on a number line, things that are 3 away from 0 are -3 and 3. They're both 3 steps from 0. So if x is positive, then x is 3. And if x is less than 0, to get 3, we actually need -x. Because negative of -3 would give me the +3 as well. This leads to how we define absolute value of x. Absolute value of x equals x if x is greater than 0. It equals -x if x is less than 0. And the equal 0 part, we could put in either one. I'm going to put it on the top one. X is greater than or equal to 0. This is an important definition. If you go further in math, you decide to go down the stem sequence. So remember, it's distance from 0. So rules for solving these equations. Isolate the absolute value first. Step 1, always get it by itself. And then step 2, split it into 2 equations. If you ended up with absolute value of x equals a, x equals a, and x equals -a. And this might not just be x, it might just be a variable expression. So we may have to solve further. If it's a variable expression inside, we have to finish solving both equations. Okay. Let's take a look at some examples. Absolute value of x plus 3 equals 6. We have already isolated the absolute value sign, so we're going to say x plus 3 equals 6, or x plus 3 equals -6. This is a speed up of doing this rule right here. So x plus 3 equals 6 is the top one. And then we're doing negative x, or negative x plus 3 equals 6. But then we divide by a negative and we get to that. So that's like following the rules of absolute value of x. Okay. So the speed up is doing that, setting equal to the positive or negative. We solve normally. And we could check our work. If I stick in 3 into the original equation, 3 plus 3, absolute value, does that equal 6? Absolute value of 6 does equal 6. If I stick in negative 9 plus 3, does that equal 6? If we do the absolute value of the absolute value of negative 6, that does equal 6. Remember, the shortcut of doing the absolute value is just make the inside positive. We talked about that in chapter 1, I think. Let's kick it up a notch. Abs 3x minus 1 plus 5 equals 9. First thing we do is we isolate the absolute value sign. We get it alone. And the absolute value of 3x minus 1 equals 4. Now we split this into two routes. 3x minus 1 equals 4, or 3x minus 1 equals negative 4. We solve each of these individually. If I do the equals 4 one, I add 1 to both sides. I get 3x equals 5, and then divide by 3, I get x equals 3. I'm not 5/3, I should say. Or add 1 to both sides here, and I get 3x equals negative 3. Divide by 3, and I get x equals negative 1. So 5/3 or negative 1 are the solutions. The homework problems like to do stuff in solution sets. So the solution set here is negative 1 and 5/3. The solution set up here was negative 9 and 3. We talked about solution sets in, I want to say 1.5 set notation. Or we talked about how sets are written. Let's do another one. Absolute value of 4x plus 5. That's done. And then we have plus 3 equals 3. We start off by subtracting 3 from both sides to get 4x plus, or the absolute value by itself. And now if I split it into two paths, I have 4x plus 5 equals 0, or 4x plus 5 equals negative 0. What? Negative 0, that doesn't make sense. These are the same equation. Negative 0 is the same thing as positive 0. So we only need to solve one. So subtract 5. Divide by 4. And we get x equals negative 5/4. Or in solution set, negative 5/4. Why is it only 1 point? The other ones was doing 2. Well, remember, this is the distance part. Distance from 0. And it just happens to be 0 distance. So we aren't going left. We're going left and right 0. We're not going left and right. There's really only one point. We're not moving from the 0. That's the 4x plus 5. So that's why we only end up with 1 point. What if I have 9 minus the absolute value of 2x plus 7 equals 1? Well, we can subtract 9 from both sides. And I'm going to multiply by a negative or divide by a -1. And I get absolute value of 2x plus 7 equals 8. So this becomes a split. 2x plus 7 equals 8, or 2x plus 7 equals -8. Subtract 7 from both sides. I get 2x equals 1. Divide by 2, I get x equals 1/2. Or subtract 7 here, I get 2x equals -15. Divide by 2, and I get x equals -15/2. Okay. What about absolute value of 5x minus 7 plus 6 equals 4? If I subtract 6 from both sides, I get absolute value of 5x minus 7 equals -2. If I split it, I get 5x minus 7 equals -2, or 5x minus 7 equals the opposite of that is +2. And I will solve. Or x equals 9/5. Does that work? Let's do a check. 5 times 1 minus 7, absolute value plus 6. Does that equal 4? This is 5 minus 7. This is -2 inside the absolute value. Plus, then we got plus 6. Does that equal 4? I get 2 plus 6 equals 4, which is false. Why didn't this work? Pause it, see if you can figure it out. All right. If you said this represents distance and distance has to be greater than 0, you're correct. That's what it is. Distance has to be greater than 0, so this has no solution. There's no solution that will make that greater than 0. If it, or make this equal -2, because this is always greater than 0. There's no solution on this problem. All right, we got one more type of problem in this section, and then I'm going to do the inequalities. Absolute value of -4 minus 6y equals absolute value of 3y minus 2. So it's where we have 2 inequalities, or 2 absolute values. This actually doesn't cause a problem. When you have it to two inequalities, I mean, there's four ways this could go. This one stays positive, that one stays negative, or stays positive. This stays positive, that's negative. This one's negative, that's positive, and this one's negative, that one's negative. So we do the, this because it's x or negative x. So, but they all boil down to having ones that match and ones that don't. So when you have two absolute value inequalities or equalities, you drop the equality for both, and then you do for one of the inequalities, you put a negative around it with parentheses. Okay. So we can solve normally. I would add 6y here to get my y's together and positive, which means I can add 2 to both sides. And I get negative 2. I divide by 9 and I get y equals negative 2/9. Or here I got to distribute first. And now I add 6y to both sides. And I only get 3y on the right. And I can move the y's to the left by subtracting. I got negative 6 over here. Divide by 3 and I get y equals negative 2. So there's two options there. All right. Peace.